Okay, I am in a really great place because I have realized the victim position that I had been taking and how unaware of it or how unconscious that I've been that I was in that victim position. And how freeing it's been to realize that, and how much easier eating to hunger has become just being aware of that and choosing not to indulge that victim thinking. And
had you made that connection before, how your food consumption was directly tied to you feeling the need to compensate yourself for some environmental hardship?
No, even though I've worked on this for a long time, for some reason, that was not easy for me to see in myself, maybe in some areas.
Do you think it's because you just never questioned your interpretation of these environments? I think sometimes people don't question their interpretation or perspective of it. And so as a result, the negative emotion that you feel that is correlating to being a victim, it feels like it's not negotiable, that there's no other alternative, that your life sucks, this is a shitty environment, I'm overworked, I'm inadequate, I don't know what I'm doing, or whatever the cause or perception is. If you don't ever question it, don't you agree the only way to feel better is to find some way that you feel compensated for having to have that negative emotion?
Yes, I started to recognize where I had been telling myself, I deserve this. I deserve this because this has been hard, or I deserve this because I need a place to feel better. It's been quite the realization that even though, I've felt challenged in my work, I felt like I had a lot to do, but anytime I would feel inadequate, I was compensating with food from a space of I deserve this.
And however, and I'm going to pause you right there to ask a question to see if you can make the connection. Why would you be in a position to feel that you deserve the food? So there's two sides to that question, right? There's the position of, well, because I'm a victim.
There's an entitlement.
That's the entitlement, yeah. But the other part of I deserve this food comes from the deprivation of food that you used to have with dieting. People who don't deprive food, and this is what you noticed last time you and I talked, you had noticed, I'm not restricting anymore. I'm honestly not even saying that's bad food and limiting it because it's bad food. I've gotten rid of that, which was a big deal, that we got rid of that morality around food, because you had your heart and soul believed in the morality of food. So to give that up was a big deal. And so the next part for you, in that we kind of eliminated the body image, but we went into the fear of gaining, and how ultimately that anxiety kept you in some form of deprivation in your mind, even though you weren't literally depriving anymore.
Yes. And I was convinced that I wasn't overeating because, how can I say this? I didn't think that it had anything to do with my obsession with food, that I was overeating. I didn't think I was still obsessed. I didn't make the connection that I was holding myself as a victim.
Yeah. And do you remember me in our conversation last, I said, you're obsessing over it.
Yeah,
there has to be that incessant thoughts about food, thinking this about it, wondering about it, wanting it, timing it.
And another big connection that really served me was when we talked about that it was okay to suck.
Yes.
Because I was...
Hold on a second. I want you to pause that. But before you talk about this, let's give the listener here in our Patreon group reference to what we're really talking about. You and I have actually worked together for years, on and off. you came to me like the first year I published Weight Loss Apocalypse, and we done a few sessions. And then there was a break, and then you came back to work with me 3 years ago. We'd made some progress, right, in terms of, and at that point, don't you agree, my approach was far more around body image, right? Instead of protocol, it was body image. And then we'd made some progress, and then you, unbeknownst to me, decided you're going to go into intermittent fasting, because that would make sense. It's like, I could do this. And
I disappeared, and I just kind of disappeared because... Well, and one thing that I knew that I wasn't really getting what you were saying, and once I attached myself to the idea of intermittent fasting, I felt like I could just do this. I get it now. I kept telling myself that I get it, and I decided I would just go off and do my intermittent fasting, and that I wouldn't weigh myself, and that I took what I thought I understood.
Intellectually.
Oh, absolutely. It was all
intellectual knowledge, right? So, okay, I think I get it. Now I think I can go back and lose some weight, and that I won't have these issues with food, because I intellectually understand that we have to remove the weight. We need to relax, but this is what I've learned too over the years. And so you had come to me again a month ago. Was it a month ago? Was it even a month ago?
It's probably a month to 6. Well, probably a month ago. And one piece that I just want to add in there is that I was very... I was going to do a round, it was when I was moving along and progressing, and you brought up, so at some point, do you want to do another round of the protocol? And it freaked me out. I was like, what? No, I just barely, came to terms with the fact that I was okay with all of this, and that I wasn't going to diet, and I didn't stay with you long enough to really understand what you even were doing. And so it took me playing around and dieting and becoming miserable over and over again for these last few years before I contacted you a month ago. And it took me quite a while to get up the courage to come here, because in my mind, talking to you meant I was going to gain. And I knew that, but I was ready to be miserable because I wanted out.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? When you're explaining that, I'm assuming you're in your mind recalling the miserableness.
It was bad.
I know, and I that's the thing, because I've been there. I know the misery, and that's why I'm like, yeah, it's pretty bad, and I understand. So even when you look back to 3 years ago, it's so understandable why you bolted. This is not easy. That what I'm asking you to do, what I've asked you to do, what I've asked everybody that I work with to do, is so painful. It really is painful. It's not like, do this and it's amazing. No, it's painful. It's terrible, actually.
Yeah. Well, I kept telling myself that I get it, or I would convince myself that I get it. And then you'd say something and I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I just decided that I'd just do it with the level of understanding I had. I couldn't.
Well, that's kind of what we came to last week, or this weekend. You and I had talked on Friday. Was it on Friday that we talked, or Saturday?
It was last Saturday.
Okay, Saturday. Because you were really struggling. You were, you had made progress. You're like, right?
Oh,
binge eating had gone away, but you were still having these overeating issues, and I remember you saying, I get it, and I was like, hold on a second, but you don't.
Yeah.
You keep on saying that, but you're looking at the evidence, and you're not getting it. That doesn't mean there's something wrong, right? And I remember in our history of talking, that in your history, you were the prized child of perfection. I am the perfect child. I'm the one that does it perfectly. I do everything right. you're getting all this validation for being right, but underneath it all was this wrongness, right? Fear of inadequacy. And part of what you were bringing to the table in our work was this desire to be right, to do it perfect, to be there, and to be there before you actually got there, you know? Yeah. And so this is where we're going to come back to what you were saying earlier about part of what's been pivotal at this point in your shifting, in your progress. Because right now you're going through this process, and don't you agree it is rapid?
Yes.
Once you get these shifts, it's almost like, holy shit, stuff just starts changing, and it doesn't take effort. It just changes with your perspective. It's like your perspective changes and everything changes. Nothing materially changes. Your job didn't change. Your marriage didn't change. Your kids don't change. Your church didn't change. Nothing else changed. But your perception and your state of being is changing effortlessly as you're doing this. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful process. And it's not as ugly as you thought it would be, you know?
No.
So this process, so we had talked about in that moment, I remember very clearly going, you know, it's okay that you suck. It sounds so counterintuitive because most people would go, no, you don't suck, like sucking's a bad thing. No, it's okay. You're a kind, good person. Let's try to compensate somehow for you sucking so that you don't feel so bad. So it's like equilibrium. You suck really bad. Let's try to make it better by creating some idea around how you don't suck. No, who cares if you suck? What's wrong with sucking? What's wrong with not quite getting it all right now?
Well, for me, that was just so important in, you know, I play the pattern in the food realm, but I play that pattern in my work and in relationships, and just embracing the okayness with sucking. It's an awesome way to say it. I'm happy to suck, and
that's amazing. Isn't it amazing? That's something I found too. I'm like, holy crap! This is what grace is. This is what it means.
Yeah.
So
it's so much freedom.
So you and I were raised in a very similar religion. We were in this. Okay, so have you ever thought too that maybe some of that positionality around being right comes from how we were raised in that? Yeah. Before you actually understand it, we're just reading it and memorizing it, given a concept of what it is, but we don't necessarily have our own personal witness of it. And so people, and this is not just in that religion, it's all in all religions. It's also in all, it's like book knowledge, right? It's like, oh, I've memorized this and I know what that is. But when because I've read it and I understand it intellectually, when we talk about faith, for example, I studied. I mean, I was like I followed it. I did everything, right? And I was like, my heart and soul was in it too. And so I didn't know really and understand faith until I was going through the reconciliation process to commit suicide, right? It was in my head, the moment of complete surrendering was the moment I actually internally recognized what that feels like, what faith feels like, because it feels like I'm going to be blown into dust in the wind, that I don't exist, that it feels, but I'm willing to allow it. Without knowing what's going to happen on the other side. So as an example, it's like, oh, that right there, the humility involved in what we think faith is, in what faith actually is, the humility, the surrendering, the not knowing what the outcome is. Did you and I talk about that last time, or was that with another client, about what faith is? And faith is actually going into the possibility of what you don't know versus I have faith that I can get what I think I'm going to get.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Okay, yeah. Going into this abyss of unknowingness and just believing without proof, without a sense of knowingness, that with without any control, that que sera. That's a very amazing feeling because it gives you freedom.
Yes.
And now when I say freedom, do you feel that word in a different way?
Yes. Freedom is, I'm free to just be who I am. It doesn't mean anything in particular. I just here, I'm present, and that's the freedom.
Yeah, infinite shift potential of choices, and you can make this choice, and then there's an infinite potential of choices here and there, and talk about free will, right? Freedom, to me, at least from what I'm aware of at this point, right? And my awareness may change how I see freedom. So I'll just give you my sense of what freedom is absolute, infinite potential.
Yeah.
What that gives me is autonomy. I don't know.
Yeah, right. It includes, there's just so much confidence, and one of the things that you let me go deeper on was when I realized that I felt like I'd been pretending that it's like I had to, because I always got praised to be right or the good girl, I got so reinforced for doing everything according to a certain standard, and we talked about how my standard was way up here, and I was always measuring myself against this standard, and I wanted to be okay sucking, it was time for me to just be okay sucking and to not hold myself to this standard. To me, that is part of this freedom.
Yeah, liberty.
It's just, the liberty to be who I am and be just so awesome and okay with that.
Yeah.
And there isn't anything I have to be or do. I'm just gonna be who I am. And the outcome of that is I get inspiration. You talk about the possibilities. Yeah, everything's a possibility because there's nothing I have to prove. It's just
infinite. Like there is no plan. There's no plan.
But no, there isn't.
You don't want a plan, if that makes sense. You don't want a plan.
That's part of the cage.
It is. And when you use a plan, it takes away from your own self-determination. Right? Self-determination, if you look that up, is used a lot in social psychology. It's part of our authentic, autonomous part of how we are as humans. So we're not just tribal animals and pack animals, but we also have a very deep sense of wanting autonomy, our own sense of creativity. We're really unique animals. And so part of thriving as a human being is the self-determination, what gratifies you from within, that you have the freedom to live that way. Clearly, as pack animals, we acclimate to our system, our tribe, right? We do as the Grecians do. If I were to travel the world, I would want to acclimate to what culture, or in the history of that culture, I will acclimate to that. But that self-determination allows you autonomy.
Yes.
Right, within it. So this is where the quote is, wear your clothes loosely, be of the world. Wait, do I have that backwards? Be in the world, not of it. Yeah, be in the world, not of it. We're not suggesting that you completely cut ties with your religion, completely cut ties with your family. You don't just be autonomous in your self-determination. And for you could never self-determinate because your concept of self was far outside of your reality. You created an identity of self around perfection in whatever system you're in, right?
Right.
So that's
right.
So that's why your self-determination pretty much got hijacked and you became a slave, right? So what we did is said, hold on, every standard you've been holding yourself to, whether it is religious, whether it is a fantasy you created, doesn't have to come to you from some dogmatic system. You can create your own dogma, right?
Yeah.
So
which I've done in a lot of ways. And so there's been I've been very excited to experience myself as more of an observer of what my identity has been, and being okay with just stepping aside from that identity and just watching, and I'm so like almost looking for opportunities to just be in the background, and there's so much less ego involved in my everyday interactions
because there's no need for it if you're okay sucking. See, this is why you have that you're describing a symptom right now of, like, remember when I said to you a second ago, you notice everything's super different without effort? It's because you came to the realization that you suck. Now, I say that, and we talked about this too, that the idea that you suck is relative to your previous high standards of the narcissistic standards of superiority for you to feel valued and validated and wanted. So in order for you to get there, this is where it is painful. Like right now, you and I are talking. It's like, oh my God, this is so easy. Like, oh yeah, don't you guys get it? Right.
It was very much hell. And in the past 4 weeks, however long since I emerged and wanted to talk to you, I have felt like I've been in and out of hell. I would start to feel peaceful and get it, and then I would all of a sudden find myself that I have slipped back, and I'm in that hell again. And part of it for me was the realization that I have had this superiority about me in all these different areas that I wasn't even aware of.
Yes.
And that was really painful to acknowledge and to see. And I kept telling myself to stay present and not to give energy to the past, but to just keep moving forward and looking forward. And that really assisted me, because I'm okay with the past being what it was. It is the realization and the waking up. It feels so good to be in this feeling of rebirth that it's okay. I'm so forgiving of all of that. It's like you say, it's understandable. And I was just doing the best I knew, but now I can see differently, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's so much easier, right? It's like you're living in natural grace, because you can't do better. And this is the hard part. This is when I was going to say is that it's a very painful process, because in order for you to be willing to suck, what you had to do was be willing to be unwanted, because you had attached at a very young age that in order for you to be wanted as a person from people you love and care about, that you had to meet these standards, that meeting these standards made you wantable, lovable. Yes. And so the pain of the process is the willingness to be unwanted. Yeah. Oh, that's not easy.
No. But especially, doing it I'm 52 years old. I've done this for my whole life.
Well, and it was really meaningful to you. The desire to be wanted is primal. That's part of survival mechanisms as a pack animal. And we can talk about the third hierarchy of need is actually a survival trigger. If you feel fear of rejection, abandonment, and disapproval, and you're sensitive to those things, if you're afraid of that, if you're not willing to be rejected, abandoned, and disapproved of, you're going to go into pretty significant fight or flight. And so those symptoms are fantasizing, overreaching, all or nothing, perfectionism, right? Assimilating to systems as dogma, like overreaching these dogmatic systems, right? Attaching yourself to them really because you have fear that you cannot survive alone. And so essentially, to get to where you're at now, you have to do what your brain is wired to not do, which is to accept and to go into abandonment, rejection, disapproval, and not being wanted, that you will get disapproved of, that no one is going to want you, that you're going to get fired, that people will know you suck, right? Again, we're speaking to what you held on to prove your value. And so because you had latched your security, your safety onto that perfectionism in every way, that's what we have to negotiate with. Even if at this point, you can see how irrational that was. We can't negotiate with reality because your brain has latched onto an irrational standard.
Yeah.
Right? And you believed you should reach that standard. You basically had shackled yourself to those standards as if it is not negotiable. It is dogmatic. You don't have a choice. You cannot question the goal of being perfect, of being superior, of being the best, of meeting all the standards plus 10 points higher. And so the pain of the process is actually crumbling and crashing down the facade of that. Like, here's what I'm holding on to feel wanted. And because it requires such incredible degrees of suffering, obsessive compulsiveness, feelings of isolation, lack of autonomy and self-determination, all of that the humanity in you, it was sacrificed to reach those goals, right. The inhumane goals. In order for you to get freedom from that, right, the suffering, you had to accept the pain of being unwanted, unliked, and the body image of getting bigger, right, which is the other part of that recovery process, was not only looking at the victim positionality, which is a consequence of holding yourself to standards that are superior to what you actually at, right?
Yeah.
And holding others to standards that are superior to where they're at, and holding your environment to a superiority to other than where it's at, and holding your, right? Those expectations are truly where victimization is born. So you had to shift your way of perceiving things. And the only way to really shift that perception was for you to accept and willfully be okay being inferior, sucking, right? And I had said to you, well, and that sucking is relative to the standard. So do you really suck? Of course not. But relative to those standards, you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. And that's the truth. It's like, every criticism out there that exists is true. Relative to that position, it's absolutely true. No argument, right?
Yeah.
And once you're aware of that, it's like, oh, then why be afraid of that inferiority? Because it is true. And trying to hold yourself to a level of performance, whether it's with recovery, whether it's with religion, whether it's with intelligence, schooling, teaching, work, housework, cleanliness, taking care of shit, whatever it is. You can only really do the best you can with everything you're juggling at one time.
Right.
And that includes your perceptions, right? Your expectations. Think of all of the crap that was going into what you were juggling. And then the moment you said, this sucks, and then you'd go eat food.
Yeah,
right?
I can only go so long, and then I've got to have a release. And I convinced myself that I was addicted to sugar, and that I was only a small handful of foods that I wasn't, having a bad relationship with. Like, I can only eat these foods that I have a good relationship with that don't trigger me. And
well, that's where you came to me 3 years ago. And then, right? And then you may have carried that on after the fact, just because we never finished that work or our work together, because you weren't ready yet. You needed to suffer more to get to this
I did.
point.
And I went back into it to varying degrees. And by the time I came back, I was convinced that I couldn't eat certain foods. However, I let go of that really quickly because I did trust what you were saying, and I was willing to go for that. It was what I didn't know was this victim piece was so critical, and superiority, all of that I didn't have any clue about yet.
You know what's amazing to me is that I really don't know what to say until I'm in a session with someone. It's not like I had that plan for that session. Okay, here's today's lesson.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just you were in the moment, and that presence is really what creates the miracle.
Yeah, I also would say that your humility is actually the antidote.
Mm.
I just cannot emphasize this enough. Humility, and that's the willingness to fail. That was where you were willing to suck.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden, whoosh, everything changes.
Yeah, I had to be willing to be wrong. And in order to raise my consciousness, I couldn't go any further until I was willing to be humbly wrong.
And be okay with it. The key is to forgive yourself for it. It's very different than, I'm wrong, I suck.
Yeah,
right?
It is. And it comes a lot with grace and with the acceptance is what's so hard, because it just feels so sticky and goopy, and it's just like, and the mind just wants to figure it out. And it's just all that letting go was, I don't even know how I did it exactly. I just remember leaving that session and I was in hell for a good 24 hours, just processing, and then finally I think I woke up that next morning and it just came to me about the victimization and the superiority.
And the willingness to suck.
And the willingness to suck. And those three things really stood out. And all of a sudden I felt better. And I started to see things more clearly. But it wasn't instant, even though it seems fast. This has been years of this in the back of my head, knowing that there was a way out that I wasn't willing to, I was too afraid to go to.
That would be everybody, by the way. To include myself, right? I was willing to commit suicide before I did that route. You know, and the willingness to admit failure, the willingness to be seen as a failure, to actually share your failure, the willingness to talk about what that takes. It takes humility. It actually takes the willingness, and this is the power of, I think, that shift in your awareness or a shift in your consciousness, is the willingness to actually present your inadequacy.
Yes, and I have kind of a poignant illustration that I'm remembering that I want to share, is that yesterday I went to get my hair done. And I have been going to this same gal for my hair for many years. And so I went to her heavy. I did several rounds of HCG, was quite small. And then as I regained weight after doing several rounds of HCG, she's always talked to me about whatever food. How are you eating now? What are you eating? What are you doing? And I'd always share this, whatever crazy thing I'd learned, and I would share with her. Well, so yesterday I was sitting there to get my hair done, and she had these Cheetos, and they were sitting across the room, and I wasn't even, I had no, something came up, and I said, she'd been telling me some certain things she'd been eating, and I said, so what are you eating now? Cheetos and jelly beans? And she laughed because she had a bunch of those foods there, and she goes, do you want some Cheetos? And I said, well, okay, maybe. And she got me a cup, and I took the Cheetos, and I was hungry, and so I ate them, but I was eating them really slow. And she said, are you gonna eat those? Because I would pause and talk while my hair was processing. Well, anyway, got to the point where I really had enough, and I'd probably eaten maybe 10 pieces, I don't know. And it was so amazing. All of a sudden I realized that I was totally done and that I wanted no more. And she was like, aren't you going to eat more than that? I had somebody in here a couple hours ago, and they just had like 2 cups of them. And I said, no, I'm really satisfied. You couldn't pay me to eat another one.
And it wasn't because you shouldn't eat that.
No.
These are bad for you. There was probably no dialogue. It was just like, yeah, my body's pretty much, it's good. Body said done.
Yeah. And she had a lot of questions about it, and all I told her as much as I felt like I could before her brain exploded, because she wasn't able to compute what I was even telling her. I said, no, really, because she said, so so what diet are you going to use next? And I said, I'm done. I just eat what I choose to eat, what sounds good to me, and I eat till I've had enough of it, and then I stop. And you know, and it's, I created her perception of me. She couldn't comprehend what I was telling her. And I said, I will never go there again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I heard it come out of my mouth without me even thinking about it. And that was I guess it was 2 days ago, because that's when I came home and texted you that I just was so grateful and how happy I was to be in the space I'm in. And so I would say that was my litmus test as to where I'm at compared to last Saturday.
It's amazing. It's just easy. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I find. As soon as we remove all the drama and the chaos, backing everything, eating to hunger is really natural. It comes naturally. There's no anxiety. You don't have that constant background noise around what you can and cannot eat, what you should and shouldn't eat. Oh my God, I'm not hungry, but I don't want her to know that I don't want to hurt her feelings, so I'll take it easy. And oh my God, I'm eating without hunger. There's none of that.
No, and I literally trust my body 100%. I have reconciled with my body, and my body gets to be in control of what it can do, whatever it wants to do, whatever it needs to do. That's what I desire for it to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that was our conversations prior to last session, was let the body be what it's going to be, accept that it's going to be that. And then this last session was, I could just tell, for whatever reason, you're afraid to gain weight.
Yeah, I was really afraid.
So you see that now too, right? It's clearer to you right now, isn't it?
It is.
Where it wasn't
I was in denial
before.
Of it before.
Yeah, and not intentionally. Do you see how that denial probably wasn't intentional? You didn't even know it.
Yeah.
It was like a hoping. It was probably a come across in your mind as a hopingness that you wouldn't gain, which ultimately is fear of gaining.
Well, and because I kept telling myself I get it. I mean, I just would say I get it, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get it.
I get it. And I'm sure I'm okay gaining weight, even though...
But I wasn't. But now I really am. I'm really cool with it.
Yeah, because ultimately, you kind of have to be okay with it. Don't you agree? If you were to be honest, if you're allowed to be honest about who you are and you're okay sucking, why doesn't the body get the same freedom?
Absolutely.
Can't the body be okay sucking?
Yeah.
What if it sucks? What if it's going to get fatter, whether you like it or not? What if that's the suckiness of your body? Right? Again, relative to thin supremacy. Right? The suckiness is relative to your expectations, relative to what you expect it to do for you, relative to whatever fantasy you created about it. What if it actually sucks?
Yeah.
Without your help. It's like eat to hunger, give it natural lenience around what you're going to eat. Be realistic. It's not like we're encouraging you to eat sugar every day, all day long, and Cheetos. That's all you're going to eat. That's not it. We're just saying if it sounds good to you and that's what you want, go for it. It's not worth shame. You shouldn't be afraid of eating a Cheeto or Cheetos or 2 cups of Cheetos. That's not worthy of fear. Now, if you're going to drink some bleach, maybe you should be afraid for that moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that to my body. But if I don't have any judgment on a Cheeto, I know that my body can handle a Cheeto, and my liver will handle whatever detox needs to happen from that Cheeto.
Right.
And it'll be fine.
And if it can't handle Cheetos, you're screwed, man.
And I would probably feel sick if it couldn't handle it, and so I choose not to. I mean, I wouldn't even want it next time.
I know. It would take, much less to feel that satisfied zone, right? So that's the most amazing part about, I think, the indoctrination around the diet industry, is that you're always taught that all Cheetos are bad. One Cheeto is bad. Like it's bleach, right?
And if you have one, if you're addicted,
your liver is going to blow up.
Yeah, and you won't be able to stop, because people, they can't stop if they start.
Yeah, not questioning.
What I thought.
Yeah.
But I'm here to testify that it is so easy to have one. I've had one piece of chocolate because I could feel the need for just a little bit, and it was so easy to just have one.
Because you weren't withholding it from yourself. You didn't feel bad about it. You didn't think that there was something wrong with it. That to me is the actual freedom from, talk about suffering. You're not suffering with all that background noise. That background noise is terrible.
And it takes all the sucky energy. It sucks all the energy.
Mm-hmm. You have no life. That becomes your life.
Yeah.
Is, can I have the Cheeto? I can't have the Cheeto. Oh my God, if I have one Cheeto, I'm not going to be able to stop. I'm going to ruin it. Oh my God, I should just stay away. Screw it. I'm having the Cheeto. You know what? I've already ruined it. I might as well go to the grocery store and get everything that I'm denying myself, because you know what? It's on. And tomorrow we'll clean this up. I won't have any more of this crap food. It's poisonous. Every time I see...
It makes the days when someone brings treats to work the worst days, because, oh no, someone brought treats. Dang it.
I can't have any, but I want it. I'm a victim. I deserve it.
This isn't a cheat day, so dang it. I should have started tomorrow, because look at this. So all of that is gone. I don't have to even worry. I can have something or not. It's all of this freedom is like being reborn. I just don't even hardly know what to do with all the freedom I feel.
You just relax in it.
So
it's like floating on the ocean on your back.
Awesome. Yeah.
Oh, here comes a wave. La 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 la. Whee! Yeah, and it's I believe this is how life is meant to be lived, like this. I think, at least from where I'm aware of right now, I believe that we come here and we have to get past those mammal primal survival mechanisms. And the most important one is that we're pack animals, and getting past our fear of being seen as a failure. And the only way to do it is to be a failure and be okay with being a failure. You see that now too. It's not running from failure. It's actually being okay with failure.
Yeah, I see that.
So counterintuitive. So counterintuitive to what our entire system teaches. Don't be a failure. Don't be a failure. And if you fail at this, you can succeed at that. Like, compensate for it.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with failure?
Well, it's how we learn. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, that's the truth. That is the truth. It's how we learn if it isn't defining you.
Yes.
Right? Those are the studies of the, again, self-determination, that if one of the safest ways to be self-determining for our lives and our happiness is that if they talk about the child development in relationship with parents, specifically the mother, that when children fail at something, that they are going to look at their own tribe to see if it's okay. Yeah. Kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so children that grow up to be functional adults, that what they found in studying through decades of research is that the children that suffered from the least amount of mental illness, the most, overall well-being, were the children who were given lenience around making mistakes at home. That they could leave the home, make a mistake, come back home and feel safe. Not enabled. It's different. The enabling is different. The enabling is like saying, I will give you your drugs. Right? That's different. This is self-determination, where you are willing, you can go out and do your own thing, and your own parents will love you even if you fail, even if you suck. And that may have been the case for you, but you might not have been willing to even find out.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's what I learned.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. I didn't realize my parents really loved me until after I married outside of the religion. Until after I made these decisions that ultimately I felt so ashamed of, so fearful of, that to witness my mom want to be at the wedding, that was amazing to me, because it was such a failure in that religion. It's really impacts the perception of family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I can see that in myself. Yes.
So to find out afterwards, it's like I never was willing to take the risk because for me, and this is where no one else is to blame, it was somehow maybe in my karma, maybe in a past life, who freaking knows, my lesson in this lifetime. I was so afraid to be judged and rejected that I was not willing to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. So I treated my parents as if they were terrible people. Yeah. Even though
you were the victim of that.
Correct. And it was all in my head because my parents loved me so much. So much. I had to have an out-of-body experience to witness that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. There's lots of parallels in my life to that. And I've learned a lot observing how the people around me are with others. I'm in a leadership role right now at work where I see the people that were my bosses before and the grace that they give to those that are struggling as they work through different, learning curves. And I looked at it like, wow, I had no idea I would have grace, that I would get extended that kind of grace. I would always try to be perfect at everything. Mm-hmm. And so
you were projecting your perfectionism onto them. That's what I feel like I was doing too, is I had a belief around what was expected of me. And to some degree it was, right? This is the expectation for how you dress, how we talk, what we do on Sundays, how you're going to get married, who you're going to marry, you're going to do this. There's all these expectations that in my mind were dogmatic. You cannot question them. And actually they were dogmatic for sure. But I applied the dogma as if my parents were dogmatic with me, when in reality, as my parents, they would have loved me with so much grace. Yeah. They might not have understood it. They might have absolutely judged me, but they weren't going to abandon me. They didn't abandon me.
No, but it is very real, that fear of being judged and rejected. I really appreciate learning about the primal, needs. That whole understanding that is part of how I could give myself grace.
Yeah, because you're human, right? It's like, this is our nature. And essentially, for you to get to this place, you had to go the direction your nature told you not to go.
Right.
Which is go into rejection, go into disapproval, go into failure, go into everybody's going to find out and they're going to stone you to death. Go into that. Yeah. Which one's worth, being caught and stoned to death, or continuing to suffer the way you're suffering? Which one's worse?
Being caught and stoned to death.
No, that would have been easier.
That's the easier one.
Yes, that's what I meant. Like, we're going the direction your brain says not to go because you've gotten to this place where running and hiding and avoiding has caused so much destruction personally within yourself, within your psyche, within your soul, within your life's purpose, that you might as well get caught and get stoned to death.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right. That's a shift, I think, for people when they come to that awareness. That was like why you decided to come back to me. It's because it had gotten so bad that you had to face what you didn't want to face.
Yeah. And I knew, intuitively, that there was a way. I didn't want to go through that, but I knew that I was desperate. I felt like I can't see what to do. I cannot do this on my own. My mind that created this is not going to be able to fix it in the state that I'm in. And so...
And you have to get out of your mind and out of your own awareness.
Yes.
Right? You can't... This is what I've also come to realize, that you cannot use the state of mind that is suffering to get out.
Right.
There has to be the willingness to go into a state of mind that you don't know what it feels like. You don't know and all. You have to go into not knowing.
Yeah, and it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Feels like it's vulnerable. It's
and until it's not. I mean, it shifts, but when it's in the darkness of it and the blindness, that's where you talk about the faith, because it takes a great deal of faith and humility to be that and to really look at it. It's not just, okay, I'll just endure it. It's, I've got to take a look.
Yes, I love that you just said that. Oh my gosh, you have really changed since we talked last.
I know. It's just
Like
it's like all this kind of gel.
Totally different. That what you just said, you cannot know that from where you were.
No. Yeah. So
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's something to celebrate. I'm way pumped. I feel totally different, and so I'm just really grateful.
Can you believe that? Can you believe that this exists where you're at right now?
No,
you're welcome.
I can't believe it. I'm happy, and I know that this is what I wanted to get to, but I cannot believe it.
Well, and the thing is this, you don't know until you are, it's like willing to die. That's to me what it feels like. You got to be willing to die. Because that's what your brain says it's going to happen. It tells you you're going to die. You got to just lay there.
You saw I went clear to 700 pounds of willingness.
You did.
I did. You told me that the more willing I would be to go, the bigger I would be willing to go, the greater on the other side that I would be able to get out of this.
Yeah, the more freedom you get.
The more freedom, and that's where I landed. And it's so big in my mind that I can't comprehend it, but to me it symbolizes my willingness to let my body do whatever it needs to do from a loving space. It's from a space of, you, honey, I have tried to control you and felt ashamed for so long. You just do whatever you need to do, and I'm good with it because I want to reconcile this, and I want you to have the freedom to heal whatever way you need to heal. And so that to me was it just felt like a really great number.
Yeah, I went up to 500 pounds in my head. Could be, and you have to go into it like what you just said when I said, holy shit, you're in a different place. You have to be willing to surrender everything. Yeah. And the willingness, I cannot emphasize this enough. The willingness, that's the feeling of will is where that shift happens. I am willing. The physicality of physical hardship, diabetes, losing your limbs, not being able to walk, requiring an assistant, total physical paralysis. Really, if you think about 700 pounds, that's total physical paralysis.
Yeah, and even losing a limb, all that, none of that made any sense to me. Like, why would I even be willing to? Why would I want that more?
Well,
but now I get it.
Yeah, because you're in a perfectly good body and you're paralyzed because of your mind.
Because if my spirit is free and I don't attach to my body, it doesn't matter.
I know, it doesn't matter because your soul space, right, has total freedom at all times. It's not a physical limit. It's an awareness. You could even say that my awareness is really important. And it's not even your awareness. It's an awareness.
Yeah, it's just the awareness
there's an awareness. I'm aware. So as long as I'm aware, I have the infinite possibility. That space of infinite potential exists in awareness. And it changes based on what you're aware of. And that space of awareness, which is infinite, can be there at all times, whether you know it or not. Right? Because before it existed, you could say, all this existed, I just didn't know it. Until I became aware of it. And then I went, oh, this is different than I thought. Right? Yeah. And, but don't you agree that the only way to access this way of being is to completely surrender your life?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be
sense of control that I have over it.
You got it. Because it's really, that controllingness comes from
fear.
Those are primal instincts of survival. Which would make sense if you were being chased by a bear.
Right. And I've lived in fight or flight so much.
You've been running from a bear for decades.
Yeah. It's become second nature. And so, I don't know, it just all clicked. And I just like, oh my heck, I live in fight or flight all the time. And I'm always, trying to meet this standard. That was just very pivotal for me to be okay sucking.
I know. It was pivotal for me too. And it's pivotal for everybody I work with. Getting them to that place of willing to do it. I can't do that for anybody. I can say, you got to be okay sucking. Is sucking really that bad? Some people, when I present this, they think, yeah, it is. And I don't want to suck. And it's like, well, I can't help you from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't make someone be willing to suck.
No, and I can totally feel why someone would not be okay with it, because I've been there. It is really hard.
Mm-hmm. It goes against your nature.
Yeah.
Now, but here's the thing. Once you're okay with it, truthfully and honestly, in your heart, not just in your thinking and like, yeah, I'm cool with it until I'm not. No, it's like for when it's real.
Yeah.
When you internalize it from your heart, like, I am okay. I am okay even if everybody else thinks I suck. Even if I am abandoned by everybody, to include my dog. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not that but you go to that into your head. You go to that point, the low point in your head, because once you hit that low point, there's freedom in that low point. That's what's fascinating to me, is this freedom.
Mm-hmm. It is fascinating.
Comes from the low point, the actual sucking and rejection and abandonment, and like living on the side of the mountain in a tent.
Mm-hmm.
If you can be okay with that, because you're free to think, because you're free to be, because there is no expectation.
Yeah.
What then happens to the reality you're in?
It's easier to see it. It's just, I can clearly see it for what it is.
It's not necessary. It's not necessary.
Yeah. It's just
extra.
I can just see it. Yeah. I mean, and I can, it's a very peaceful place, because it's just, the drama isn't there. The angst is gone. It's just easy.
Yeah, because you're willing to lose it too. It's like, oh, I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you that freedom too, to just be real. I'm just going to be myself. I'm just going to do the best I can with my heart and my integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I can't do much more outside of that.
No.
It's an illusion to think I can. And if I force myself to, that's where some of this mental illness comes in.
Yeah, right.
Because now you're suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's where you've been living.
Yeah, and I knew that I was mentally ill. I remember thinking that I am mentally ill. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to do this. Yeah. I don't know how to.
Are you surprised at how quickly this unraveled?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So this to me is a sign of just based on what I've been studying, that it's not we could say it's mental illness, but mental illness is a condition, I could be wrong, okay, that responds to medication, that is, it's not circumstantial, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that not only did I recover literally instantaneously, there might have been a day where I was kind of like, woo, I'm not sure what's happening, but I was literally recovered. Completely different state of being coming out of that out-of-body experience. That's not mental illness. That's a that's a syndrome.
It's a syndrome. Yeah, mm-hmm. I can see that.
Because a syndrome only exists when you have a combination of circumstances. So if you get rid of those combination of circumstances, the symptoms go away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, gone. So I'm still churning this. I'm still chewing on it. how do I write it? How do I present this? What is the syndrome? What are the aspects that are so pivotal in the syndrome? The narcissism.
I think understanding narcissism.
That's why I said that was the first thing I just said. Or you were thinking the narcissism is important, the victimization, the codependency, drama triangle between
the superiority, all of it.
Fear of inferiority, like definitely afraid to be unwanted, unloved, unliked, and attaching that to a social system, the codependency then with the social system, whether it's religion or body image. Then the means to the end, which is like isolation from sex, isolation from food, whatever they're manipulating that is primal. Okay. Equates to porn addiction, equates to food addiction, and then is it really an addiction or is this a symptom of the syndrome?
Yeah, that was one of the things I had wanted to ask you is it was starting to, I would have these thoughts. So is someone who is alcoholic or is addicted to drugs, is that in some way similar to this that I've experienced?
Yes. I don't know for everybody, but based on the studying that I've been doing and the clients I've worked with who abuse alcohol and other narcotics, they recover the same way and they lose their desire for the actual substance that they've been using to mediate their victimization.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. The shopping issues go away and it's natural. They just don't need it anymore because they don't have the same victim position. You shift their awareness and the need for those things diminish greatly.
It's beautiful.
Yes, it's amazing. I think that as people like you, people like me, the clients I'm working with, it's kind of like, what's an eating disorder? Does an eating disorder really exist? Or is that just the symptom of this? Is that one part of the syndrome? But I haven't read anything at this point where anybody's making the connection that it might be a syndrome. I'm creating that concept. It kind of sucks. I wish it was already out there. To me, it's kind of like what I ran into with the HCG protocol. Like, I wanted the science to understand why these clients that I were helping and monitoring were experiencing and none of it existed. It was just like, Dr. Simeon's 3 types of fat. And I was like, that is so old school. Why isn't there anything new about it? So I had to go out and find the information and piece it all together to create this hypothesis. So I'm finding that I'm having to do the same thing with what I'm monitoring with people like you.
Yeah. Well,
how else do you explain this? How else do you explain how easy this is for you at this point with food? Just going into the food.
Yeah. I have no way to explain it. It's just the most amazing thing, and at the same time, it makes so much sense. To be on the other side, it's like, well, of course.
I know. See, I don't look so smart anymore, don't I?
Well, how this is how you appear to me is I'm just in such gratitude that you would be so willing to work this hard. I mean, you are working hard when you work with us, and I've listened to so many of the Patreon YouTubes that and it is amazing to just stick with people and keep working through it, and I've learned so much from listening to the different clients and their willingness to share. That, I think, was part of what helped me process, too. I think intellectually, I was hearing it, and then once it came time to process it, it all started to kind of synthesize for me. So,
yeah,
I'm grateful that you go to that work.
I'm happy to do it. I know what it feels like to suffer like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, and what you'll find too is as you talk to people and like your hairstylist and stuff, it's kind of hard to even talk about it because until they are in that type of terrible, hardcore suffering, it doesn't gonna make any sense to them. It's like, you sound like a quack. Like I sound like a weirdo. It's like, I see so much stuff on, let's just say, like random Facebook posts. I respect this guy. He's in New York, and I follow him, and he posted something about Dr. Mark Hyman or Hiram, or I don't know who it is, the sugar guy. That
Mark Hyman.
Oh Jesus! I was like, this is such shit, and I deleted it and was like, it doesn't even matter.
Right. I found myself, different people that I followed that I was sure had some pretty conscious ways of looking at it, and I look back and I go, oh, well, that was great for what it was when I was in it. But
right?
Now, that it's just not, that just doesn't work for me anymore.
Because it's so myopic. It is so looking at it through a pinhole, and they don't know that. It's not like they intend to do that. It was like the post that was posted that I was like, I just want to expose this because this is exactly what I'm talking about. He said the evidence is in sugar causes heart attacks. And I was just like, fuck you, motherfucker, that's not true.
Yeah.
Like, this is what creates these problems, is shit like that.
Yeah. Well, and someone like me who's so desperate to figure it out, I just jump from one to the next, and one belief system to the next.
You got it. And what happens? What happens when you hear something like that and you believe it? Sugar causes heart attacks.
Yeah. Well, if I just work hard enough, I can figure all this out, and I'll do whatever they say, and then I have this assurance that my body will be healthy forever.
I'll never have a heart attack, and I'll never die.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, this is a great example of cognitive distortion, total cognitive distortion, fear-mongering, ignorance, complete and total ignorance. This is like saying fat causes heart attacks.
Right.
He doesn't realize it's the same thing, what he's doing. That like food is the 100% cause, and he's not differentiating quantities and amounts. I mean, this is what the diet industry does, and he's participating and seriously getting so much power out of it to where he's omitting all the science around stress, perceptions, how perceptions impact your heart health, right? Like, don't talk about that. Let's just focus on sugar and say sugar is the culprit. That's the cause.
Yeah. But if I'm living in fight or flight, even though I've taken every bit of pleasure out of my food imaginable, but I'm scared to death to make a mistake, and every couple of weeks I can't take it anymore and I binge, then I'm creating much more stress on my body than I would have just to not do anything.
You got it. I know.
So I can have my cake and eat it too, if you want to.
Yeah, and if you end up with a heart attack eating sugar, wouldn't you rather just have a heart attack?
Yeah, and I can enjoy.
Can you believe you just felt that way too?
I know.
Oh my God, I literally would rather have a heart attack.
Yeah,
I literally
that
would.
was just crazy train to me. A few weeks ago or a month ago, that would have just been crazy train. I would have never said that.
Yeah, but now you're on a different way of looking at it and perceiving it and understanding it, and you're like, that isn't worth suffering for. In fact, that is so paralyzing to the soul. Yeah. In fight or flight.
Yeah.
That actually you could probably find evidence to say that that's more of a cause of heart attacks than the actual sugar.
Yes, the aging and the stress of that is huge. So maybe as more and more of us on this journey learn and have this experience, it'll start to become, the awareness will grow. I don't know how, but
I think it's because more and more people are going to end up suffering because of shit like that.
Right.
And because they believe it and they never question it. And that's what the social scientists who are studying eating disorders as a massive cultural epidemic are finding. That this isn't just, not everybody who has these issues have been molested. Yeah. Or even had trauma.
No.
So it's really changing how they perceive eating disorders in the realm of science and studying it. Now, people who are in the clinical environment as eating disorder specialists, haven't necessarily updated their perspective around it, and they think it's an addiction. We could say ultimately chasing after survival is an addiction, but isn't that what we're supposed to do? So why are we creating a disease out of survival?
Yeah.
Of course you're stuck in survival mode, but it's because you actually believe that your life is under constant threat.
Yeah.
Because of the food you're eating. Exactly.
So I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and there is it's a scary place to be, where I can feel totally normal one day, and then another day I can eat and eat and eat and not stop, and that's where I would get tripped up. Is I would go, wait a minute, I'm back in there, and I could probably just eat. I can eat myself sick, where yesterday I couldn't. And I think I had to finally realize that there were still some things there that I needed to look at. The victimization, the standard that was so high, and some things that I just I couldn't hold that beach ball under the water anymore at a certain point.
Oh, I love that visual.
Right back up.
I love that visual that you just said. It's like holding a beach ball under the water, or the beach ball still existed.
Yeah.
Even though you're like, look, it doesn't exist, but it was under the water. Oh shit!
And it popped up, and everyone can see it, and oh well, okay, it is what it is. And they look at it. Maybe they might even be shocked at first, but they lose interest super fast because they really don't care.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Anyways, well, awesome. So if there was anything you'd suggest to the followers or listeners of this video who won't ever be able to work with me, but they're following this and and maybe they're struggling because they're trying to do this on their own, what would you suggest?
To trust this process, to trust whatever they know, and from whatever they're hearing, eat to hunger, and look for any signs of victimization, narcissism, perfectionism, and be honest and humble, and let go of any expectation of what the body should look like, any judgment about it. It just, for me, which my big problem, my big issue, if you will, where I chose to be, was to overeat. And I've never had a problem with well, my purge has always been a diet, I'll say it that way. It was either binging or dieting. I can't remember a time when there hasn't been in the background that I'm going to fix this later, when I wasn't eating on a diet. And so part of the process of getting to where I am was the mourning of that way of life and that way of thinking. And so just trusting the process of eating to hunger is huge. And then just looking for signs of victimization.
Don't you agree you kind of have to stop trying to prove yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
There's that too. You have to be okay sucking. You have to accept that you suck and stop trying to prove yourself.
Yeah.
That's a common issue
humility.
Too. Yeah, that humility is a big
and honesty.
deal.
I mean, just being honest in a way that I never realized existed. It's a level of honesty that feels fresh and real.
Yeah, it's vulnerable too. But it's like the way I try to live now. I try to live in that honesty with myself, with others, which is kind of freeing because I have nothing to hide, right?
Yeah, and I would get hung up on, well, how can I be honest? I guess I can't be honest because I keep overeating. And it wasn't until I recognized that I had positioned myself as a victim, and so I felt entitled to that extra food. I felt there was a reason that I deserved it, and I couldn't see how I positioned myself there.
Yeah, well, if you don't eat, you end up recognizing the victimization. If you entitle yourself and just start eating, you never really get down to that victimization because you created equilibrium around it. So, oh, I'm good, I'm eating, so now you don't feel like a victim. Whereas if you know you're not hungry and you're like, I'm not going to do it, it's dishonest, I'm going to be honest with myself, all of a sudden you have these emotions of poor me, my life, and then you're like, oh my God, there's the victim. You know, and to question the victimization too, rather than just saying, I am a victim. I am a victim. Yeah. It is so humbling.
Yeah, it is. It's the most, and this is the most important thing I've ever done for myself. The most important steps that I've ever taken. And there's been very pivotal learning in my life several times, but this feels the most, like I could say, I came to Earth to learn this. I mean, this is huge for me.
Yeah, it was huge for me too. It's large enough that why would you go back? It's like
I don't know if I could. I don't know if you could pay me.
Well, there's that, and then there's also the only way to go back would be to become unaware of it. So it's really hard to, once you become aware, to become unaware.
Right. There is really, and then
it's kind of like there's been a spotlight on this, so you know what exists here. So even if it darkens and you have chaos in other areas of your life, you'll never go back to this way of being.
No.
You know, maybe in other areas you're unaware, you might, but not in this one.
Yeah.
Not relatively, not anytime soon, but honestly, if you stay honest, you stay truthful, you stay authentic, and you're always willing. The willingness that is to be a failure, to lose, to die, all of that willingness, if you keep it with you at all times.
Yeah, it used to scare me. I remember a conversation we had years ago where it was, because I was saying I get it, and I had convinced myself that I get it, and you said something along the lines of, you'll never binge again, and I remember that scared me to death, because I didn't know for sure if I could really never do that again.
Yeah, because you didn't grasp it. But but now you're grasping it to where you're like, oh yeah, why would you do that?
Never. Yeah, let's not even.
Why would you feel bad about that food? Why would you? Yeah.
Yeah. What's wrong with having a Cheeto? I mean, that's huge for me. I mean, I was the most food righteous person.
Orthorexic.
I would judge someone for drinking water out of the fountain because it wasn't the purified water. I mean, I was like ultra. Everything had to be
perfect.
The cleanest, perfect food morsel.
And in your mind, you were probably thinking that was how to love your body.
Oh yeah.
You love your body. You will take care of it. I remember you saying that to me a little bit ago, and I was like, or a couple weeks ago, and I was like, hold on. No. You don't know what you're doing. You're not taking care of the body. It does what it does on its own. You just got to listen to it.
Yeah.
Like, what really do you need to do?
Yeah, that is really much more clear to me. Clearer to me than I've ever realized.
I am amazed. Welcome to the other side.
Thank you.
And there's always more, right? There's always and that's the other thing is you get here and you're like, holy shit, there's infinite possibility of awareness here, and I'm just getting here.
Yeah, I'm just barely peeking through.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I believe my assumption is that this state of awareness is what Maslow, in Maslow's hierarchy of need, he was describing the upper levels of the pyramid, which would be self-confidence and then bliss. In Dr. David R. Hawkins, his work with the scale of consciousness, I would assume you're at the level of like 300-ish. 200-300 where it's love, self-accept, you're no longer below the 200 level of consciousness. Have you seen his scale of consciousness?
Yes, I've listened.
Below 200 is basically survival symptoms, pride, survival, Arrogance, that's the 190s. You go into shame is 80. There's the lowest stages of consciousness, which I believe I've been to.
Me too.
That self-deprecating, self-harm in the 20s. That's where suicide occurs. And who knows, really. In the end, that was his way of explaining it, was to try to create something our minds could wrap around, and he created the scale of consciousness, if you want to look it up. So I believe that you just surpassed the 200s.
Awesome.
Which is like, I can't remember how he describes it, but your symptoms change, your way of being change, your energy changes. It's like you're more loving and forgiving, you're more pragmatic and more neutral, you're more separated from other people's opinion, and you can grasp that other people have an opinion and it's okay, and you don't have to combat with them. And then there's these levels of what he describes in Power versus Force, which is a very heavy, hard read. He describes each and every scale of consciousness and you get to the point where you're like, oh, he's describing, I don't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So clearly I'm not there, but, just to try to understand it, these are things I've studied just to try to come to grips with what happened to me, let alone how the hell did you get here? And the client that I talked to yesterday, and the woman that's 200, how did she get there? She's 270 pounds and she's in this space. And you're also unique, but we're all having the same experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't even know how I'm helping you. I really don't freaking know.
I know, it's really, and one of the best, the words I resonated that you said is the neutrality. It does feel really neutral, and I can't access any ego about it. Like there's no, it's not a prideful space. It's just such a neutral, peaceful space.
I'm looking up Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness right now. Give me a second. It's pretty amazing. Let me just see here. Oh, that's a terrible. Okay, so neutrality is 250. Where you're,
okay.
Yeah, courage is at 200. Neutrality is 250. Willingness is at 3-1. Acceptance is 350. Understanding, I don't know. There's so many. When he describes it, the guy is just.
I know, he's amazing.
Like, wow. It just, to me, is amazing. It is amazing. He blows my mind, his studying and his research, but his work is the only thing to come close to explaining, what I experienced in my out-of-body experience. Anyways, so often people will ask, what should I read? And can you see why I don't really recommend anything either?
Yeah, and I'm one who I'm very well read with spiritual books of, and New Age and lots of different, and I have no, like, right now, I just have I feel kind of like what you're describing. I don't need to access any information right now. I just feel peaceful and complete.
Yeah, that's how I felt too after my recovery, and I still feel that way. So many people are like, oh my God, did you read this guy's stuff? And I'm just like, no, because it doesn't matter if I read it. It's not necessarily going to make an impact. What makes an impact is when I have my internal awareness shifting from whatever it is that I'm willing to surrender. I don't know how else to explain it, but his work, when I found someone I was writing Weight Loss Apocalypse 5 years ago, and the guy was really a great guy. And he had said, Robin, you got to read Power versus Force. And I was like, all right, I guess so. And I forced myself to read it. And it was like, holy crap, this guy he's describing these levels. And he's actually describing things that I've never been able to put to words. And this is the only time I've been able to read something and come out of it feeling more clear. It wasn't a book of how-to. He doesn't write on how to do this, how to do that. He talks about the way it feels and what it takes to get there, but he doesn't he doesn't necessarily give you step 1. Here's 5 things you need to do to have self-esteem. Like,
I have, you had mentioned this book to me before, and I have the audio book, and I have listened to it, but like you say, it is hard because there's probably a lot of it that I couldn't comprehend, but it'll be interesting to go back and listen to it now and see what I can resonate with and understand.
Yeah. I've read it a couple times, and the second time I read it, I felt different about it as well. Now, something to read that he wrote, the last book he wrote is called Letting Go.
I have that too.
That, I haven't read it fully. I've only read the intro. But I have recommended it because to me, it felt like it was an easier read. It wasn't so heady and heavy. It wasn't, and I have gotten positive feedback by everybody who actually reads it.
Oh, good.
So, meaning they are experiencing like, wow, this book is changing how I'm thinking. So it's a good combination with the work that I do and how we're processing through this, through body image specifically, and how he talks about, letting go and the willingness to surrender and basically what you just went through.
Yeah. And it's really interesting how you said, you don't really talk about this with people. I don't really know how to describe it. And it's true. It's like I've gone through a rebirth and I walk around and I can't really share with anybody what has happened, but it's awesome. This most awesome thing has happened, but it's kind of just my own private information.
Yeah. People ask me, what do you do for a living? And I just go, I help people with eating disorders. And I can't even go into detail around it. It's like,
no, because it's like, what?
So what type of degree do you have? Exercise science? It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. How did you recover, Robin? I don't know. Because it's massive in terms of how do you explain this?
Yeah.
It's a big thing that's hard to explain because it's I've gotten to the point where I can say I believe it's a syndrome, and it's something like battered wife syndrome, and you're being held hostage by the diet industry, but you're willfully holding yourself hostage to it, so they really aren't making you do anything. You're doing it because they...
and until you're miserable enough.
Yeah, you're fine. And then you realize that you're chasing a fantasy that they're dangling in front of you. You're not going to stop. And in order for you to stop chasing the fantasy, you're going to have to accept that you suck.
Yeah.
And then there's this HCG protocol that everybody finds me from. And then I'm like, shit, why?
Yeah.
Because that's just a whole nother level of insanity that we've added to this melting pot of recovery.
Yep. That's just puts a magnifying glass on the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. So it can cut both ways. It to me, I still am a huge advocate, but I will tell you this. I have seen the HCG protocol do more psychological harm than good.
I believe that.
Even though, if we could put you in a coma, it's miraculous for the body. Like it's a miracle for the body. For you, no. It is a narcissistic tool of superiority.
Yes.
Yes. And people think that it'll get them out of their victimization. That's narcissism. Like, I'll make my body feel so much better. Robin doesn't know how horrible my life is. Victim, martyr, right?
Right.
And with that mindset, you can't recover.
No. And I can see that now because I tried. Yeah. I tried to go from talking to you to do rounds on my own. And I wasn't to the consciousness level or the level of awareness that it would work.
Even though it works, the body is very responsive to it, except for you're the persecutor, you're the abuser, and you're using it as an abusive tool to fulfill the narcissistic euphoria of safety and superiority. It's just how can you get a caliber of healing with that type of destructive being? You know? And so I get contacted all the time from people who are in the middle of binging, in the middle of a round. You know, and it's sad, it's understandable, it's forgivable, but they're miserable, right? Yeah. Like when you hear me say that, you're like, oh, that's so in there. It's a scary place to be. This is terrible. It's black. It's dark. You're in a cage, and it's a dark cave that you can't even breathe. There's no oxygen. Yes. Yeah, I know. So on one part, I'm like grateful with this HCG thing because there's all these people doing it, getting far worse, and that's how they find me.
Yeah, and that's how they'll be desperate enough to want to get out.
But on the other side of it, it's so dysfunctional.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's how people are finding me. And I don't know. I just am not questioning it. It's like, you know what? However this map is being created, I'm not going to question it. So whatever.
Yeah.
I still believe in the protocol, even though it's dangerous. I've been willing to help people once they get to a certain place of awareness, once they are completely detached from not just body image, but food and the victimization of both, right? I've been able to help people, and it's very different with them. The experience is so different. It's so easy. Yeah. It's like, this is what it was intended to be like.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How exciting.
Well, you know, it's I don't know. I seriously am still figuring this out.
I can see that. It's quite the miracle, and maybe there is no explanation that the mind can really comprehend. It's just more of it's a spiritual journey and an awakening.
No, I believe it is like a portal for that, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe it is a source of suffering for that reason. So, that's a good thing. You could really look at this and go, wow, the protocol really messed you up for a good reason.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I know. We say that now.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard, but I've always known deep down that my doorway was this craziness. I've known it was the doorway, and I've searched and searched, and everything has been about finding the solution. When it would have, if I would have slowed down, or, I mean, woulda, shoulda, coulda, but it was right there and easy. A lot easier than I ever made it.
Well, you know that now after the fact.
Yeah.
That was like me going into it. I thought I was going to die. I really literally believed I was going to die. And was willing to die.
Yeah.
That was why I recovered, was the willingness to die.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the willingness to die through suicide, it was the willingness to die in my soul.
Yeah. That's quite profound.
That's how terrible the suffering was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how else to explain it other than that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
All right. This is like an hour and a half recording, so it'll be a long one for people.
Okay.